Leah.
Good position to be in.
I feel like I'm on Star Trek.
Hi, everybody. I am Leah. I'm one of the organizers of 1 Million Cups Madison, and I'm not usually doing this. It's usually Rachel. But just wanted to give a couple of quick announcements, introductions. So we're going to have a presentation today from Wes from Kurbi. He's going to be telling us about his startup. The reason Rachel is not doing this right now is because she actually just had her baby on Friday. So, yay! So, she had a little girl. Her name's Penelope, and they're going to call her Pippa. So, both mom and baby are doing very well. So, congratulations, Rachel. Other than that, thank you to Nordic for sponsoring our coffee for this month. Nordic is an epic consulting firm, just that way. And then thank you to Field 59 for doing the live stream of today's video. You can also check out if you ever want to watch a past presentation or if you missed something from today, we have a YouTube channel, so you can check it out. They put all of their live stream videos up there as recordings. So did I miss anything? Okay, good. So then we can do a couple of quick introductions just to get started. I'll start. Leah Anderson. I work at Nordic Consulting, and I'm one of the founders of 1 Million Cups Madison.
I'm Megan. I am also one of the coordinators for 1 Million Cups, and I work at Nordic as well.
Good morning. I'm Sarah. I'm an organizer of 1 Million Cups. I also work at Catalyze, which is a health IT company downtown Madison.
Morning, everyone. Amanda Halverson. I work at Adams Outdoor Advertising.
My name is Garrett Lee. I'm the co-creator and founder of Good Point and Why. I work out of 100 State.
Steve Deinhardt, Heartland Business Transitions, and MulaPitch.com.
I'm Drew Corson. I'm an attorney at Knight & Boucher.
Amanda Schwegler. I'm with Earthling Interactive, just west of here.
And for anybody who isn't familiar, the reason you're not hearing from the mic, this is for the live stream. So that's why it is on.
Hi, my name is Robert Godfrey. I'm from Vesting Communities. It's a philanthropy organization based in Chicago, looking to move back to Madison and to my first love, which is in health communication.
Sorry.
Joey Frayne with WDC on the Entrepreneurship and Innovation team.
Ian Kovachunky with Isaac Madison and On Board Now.
I'm Brennan Sheedy. I'm also with Isaac Madison.
Kurt Peterson with 32 Auctions.
Steve Clodd, co-founder of 32 Auctions, which is a platform for hosting and managing silent auctions.
Wes Garnett, co-founder of Kurbi.
Sarah Garnett, convention sales manager at the Greater Madison Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Great, thank you, everybody. So we'll get started with Wes.
Is this cool? Oh, right. Upside down. Here we go. Now we're good. I guess I gotta hold that. Cool. All right, great. So again, my name is Wes Garnett. I am co-founder of Kurbi. Just moved to Madison back in April to launch and grow this company. Started a couple of years ago. I'll walk you through a little bit of how we got started. But just as a context, so I have 4 family members with MS, and really Kurbi came out of personal stories, personal interactions, things that I learned along the way. My mom was diagnosed with MS about 14 years ago. So a lot of the thinking behind Kurbi came from just watching her try to figure it out. And back at that point, so I have 3 other people working on Kurbi with me. They're back in Delaware. They're all developers. And we came out of a startup weekend at the University of Delaware. I was only supposed to be there as a organizer and as a person just around, but I got caught up in the action, and I presented something I thought would never ever make it, and all of a sudden I got thrust into the competition. And Kurbi was the idea that came out of that. And back then the idea was that people living with chronic conditions needed to stay active, because staying active, essentially help you to manage your symptoms better. But people weren't active, at least our thinking at that point was, they weren't active because they just weren't motivated to be active. Life was just really hard, symptoms were really hard, there was no reason to stay active, and well, we learned some things along the way. For all of 2012, it was just a passion project. I didn't really work on it. 2013, we got really serious. And what we found at that point was that people weren't necessarily active because of motivation. They were really just struggling to manage their symptoms, and things would come and go as they pleased, and they had to figure out a way in the heat of the moment to figure out like how to deal with that. And well, as we learned more, we realized, well, that wasn't quite right either. The thing is that the technologies they rely on, the things that you and I rely on, they're just not personal enough to help them to manage their symptoms correctly and effectively. And it also is like not helping them to understand like what else they can do, how their symptoms and how the things that like sort of go on in their real life, how do they all come together to help me move forward? And what's interesting about that is that healthcare is really, really focused on care, but no one's really focused on quality of life. And that's where we thought we could be really effective. And that's what this last point's about, quality of life. So where we are today is that we're a health tracking and activity discovery platform. What we're really trying to do is make the world safe and inclusive for people living with chronic conditions and living with chronic pain. It would be easy for me to just walk you through the product, but it's usually a lot easier to understand where we're coming from if I can introduce you to a story and sort of walk you through how this actually fits into someone's life. So Samantha's a real friend of mine. This isn't her picture, but this is a real friend of mine. 2 kids, she's about 34. Life is really hard for her because she's an entrepreneur. She's a VP of marketing. She struggles with chronic pain, and it just comes and goes as it pleases. It's one of those things she's seen numerous doctors for over a course of years, and she's trying to figure out a way to stay active. She's one of those people that like uses essential oils and like stays away from certain dietary things and like is really, really educated as a consumer. And along those same lines, you know, every single month it seems like she's trying something new. She has a tracker she got because she figured if she could count her steps, she could figure out a better way to stay active because she'd get challenged from her friends throughout the day. She's gone to gyms, she's bought DVDs, she's seen numerous doctors again. She has all this health information that's accumulated over the years. She still has a bunch of questions that she goes to Dr. Google for. She goes to a bunch of classes throughout the week or throughout the month. She's always congregating with her friends to try to figure out new ways to stay active. But the problem here is that, well, how do you do that when you're a mother of 2 with a burgeoning career? The thing that came to mind here is that she really wanted to figure out a way to make what she has to do to manage her health sort of meld in with the things that she's really interested in doing. Because I don't know if you've ever had to deal with a condition, but going to rehabilitative therapy isn't the same as like going to ride your bike. And why can't the two essentially kind of coexist? They should be together, but right now they're really not. So Samantha hears about Kurbi from a mom blog that she follows. Some of these are like the top blogs that you guys may even be familiar with. And what she loves about hearing about what she read about Kurbi is that we give her the control to manage her own health data. The reason why we do that is because the trackers and the gyms and the personal trainers and her doctors, they're not really doing a good job of explaining how her health history actually is informing the way that she lives her life from day to day. No one's like really sitting her down and saying, this is what all of this data means. Her tracker has no idea who she is, except for the fact that she takes certain steps and that she eats certain things and that she sleeps for a number of hours. That it's great to hear that in the general, but it really doesn't help her to understand what she needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So we give her the control of that. So you can imagine, and we'll walk through what that looks like, but you can imagine the sense of freedom that she'll have when she can look at her own data, start to interpret that data for herself, and start making actionable things, taking actionable steps to manage her health more effectively. And then on top of that, not only understanding where things are coming from, now she can track what matters to her, because she understands essentially what's going on, what the data really has to say about that. And then she can improve at her own pace. One of the things she hates about her classes is that they're so linear. She has to be there every Wednesday. She has to be there every Thursday. She has to do these particular things. That just doesn't fit her lifestyle. And really quick before I go any further than that, guys, you're probably hearing about this woman and you're thinking, well, I can check out. That's like, this app has nothing to do with me. But one thing you'll be really, really interested to know is that we all have a Samantha. My wife, Sarah, is my Samantha. She essentially is the reason why I will go to the doctor. She's the reason why I'll actually get up and go to the gym. She's the reason why I'll take the medications I was supposed to take. So Samantha's a really, really key point a key person in the growth of our company. If we're not targeting her, we're really not targeting a larger population, because these are the women are the ones making a lot of the healthcare decisions. But if you're so let me move on. So if you're familiar with your health portal, if you've ever gone and looked at it, you probably know that you have to click around to everywhere to find all kinds of information, and none of it's really connected. None of it tells you why one thing relates to another, unless you're educated enough to know what it's actually saying. So my mom was diagnosed 14 years ago. Now 14 years later, we still have no idea what her record is trying to tell us. She really doesn't know anything about MS. She just knows about how it affects her. It's more of a personal thing. So what we do is something really interesting. So I'll start from the top. The first thing we do is allow you to connect your patient portal. We suck all that information in, we synthesize it and categorize it, and we create these really, really contextual contact cards. And what that does is it takes information from all over the record and puts it into a view that anyone can really understand. So we're melding in conditions, we're melding in your appointments, your tests, your medications, everything all in one place. And the interesting thing here, and I'll point it out on the screen, is that for the first time, Samantha's seeing that her chronic back pain will affect her particular exercises. She's seeing the symptoms that she tracks over time that are going to affect her goals as well. And she's also seeing that the labs and the results that she's had sort of accumulating over time, she's going to see how those things change. This is a really, really powerful step forward. I think it's what most patient portals are attempting to do, but they just haven't done yet. From there, we give her the power to sort of keep track of these things on the go. So it's not like we're making you go to a desktop. You can look at these things on the go. As things update, you're going to get notifications on your phone. You can go back and look at how these things are changing over time. When new things are added, that was interesting. When new things are added to your record, they automatically suck into the app, send you a notification, and on the fly, you're going to see how those new tests, those new results, whatever it might be, are going to affect the things that you want to do every day. You can keep track of your symptoms, as I said before. We made it really, really super easy for people to do that. And then the last thing is we allow you to discover activities on the application that make it really easy for you to find not only the things that you want to do, but how to do them. So the way that we're doing that is we're connecting our user with local experts that understand what it means to be a mom of two with chronic back pain that wants to do any particular activity. And I'm using this example because it is pretty concrete, but you can apply this to any situation that you like. Thinking about, again, of a mom with MS, whatever her interests are, we're essentially connecting her to local experts that help her to move forward. We do that on a free and paid basis. So you can think of these activities and these experts as creating essentially playbooks, step-by-step instructions that people can follow to do pretty much anything they're looking to do. So within these paths, as we call them, these activities, you're getting all kinds of stuff that you really can't find on the net that are personalized to you. The expert is creating videos. They're connecting you to other people in the community that are interested in what you're interested in. Users are providing reviews of what these experts are doing or what they're good at. You're getting, again, you're getting blog posts from the experts. You're getting the opportunity to connect with them via direct messages. So there's a lot of content that sort of gets wrapped around these choices that people are making. And it's a lot easier for a person like we've described here with Samantha in the sense that it's not linear. She can do this at her own pace. She can come in and out of this as often as she'd like to. And what I need from you guys, so I feel like I'm kind of like blitzing through this, but what I really need from the community are a couple of things. The secret right now is between us. You guys hear about what we're doing. My team knows about what we're doing, but there are a lot of people that need to know about what we're doing. So I would really, really love if you guys could sort of spread the word about us helping people to find what they love to do it on their own terms, and really get to a point where they're understanding how their health is affecting their ability to do that. We're really, really trying to be great at making the world more inclusive, because right now for people that are living with conditions, they can't do the things that you and I get to do every day, and life is really, really complicated. So if you could spread the word, that would be really great. So here's my contact information. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks.
And now we're going to open it up to questions. So if you have a question for Wes, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over to you.
Hopefully you have a ton, because I tried to stay vague on purpose so that you would ask me questions.
When do you think you're going to launch?
So that's a good question. We think we'll have the tool done, the app done sometime between November and December. And it would be really, really awesome if we could launch at the top of the year.
How many people have you had test it so far?
Yeah, so we tested with 25 folks at NYU not long ago, and about a year ago, maybe a little longer. And that went really well. And what we learned from those folks at that point was that so we started off as a symptom management application, just essentially track your symptoms, and we'd tell you how those things change over time. And it left it up to the user to figure out what they wanted to do with that. And we realized, well, there's a lot of stuff out there that tells you the same thing. And essentially, this is sort of how we got on a tangent about how patient portals aren't serving people well. We realized, well, patient portals do the same thing. How can we improve that experience? And the feedback we kept getting from people is, it's so great that you told me I'm sick. I really appreciate that. In fact, you told me how often I'm sick and how bad it gets. I really love that too. But I really want to be able to dance at my son's wedding, or I want to go rock climbing, or I really want to travel. How does your app help me to do that? And that's sort of what we had to start thinking about.
Does your app integrate with any medical devices?
Not at the moment, but it is something that we see on our roadmap, especially as you think about all the consumer applications that are currently out there. Yeah, so we do want to integrate, but we are, I guess, at the moment working with the Epic MyChart. That's essentially where we're getting our data.
So I'm kind of interested, if a person is going to put in a new data point that they've learned about themselves or how they're feeling that day, could you talk a little bit about the interaction process between what their non-data that's supplied by a healthcare provider, but their own input into it? How does that affect their ways of seeing whether they're moving up or down in terms of their improvement vis-a-vis pain or whatever condition they're dealing with?
That's a really good question. I think that's one that we're going to be fleshing out more and more as we go along. I'll try to answer your question in a couple of different points. So in terms of keeping track of symptoms that aren't necessarily reflected in their record, that's one of those things that we're really interested in, because what we're seeing is that there are a lot of inaccuracies in the record, and there are a lot of things that patients sort of want to tell their doctors but don't either know how to, or the doctor's not really taking, doesn't really care, if you will, that the patient may be feeling that. But it doesn't make it any less a reality to the patient. So our journal sort of gives them the opportunity to voice what they believe is going on, even if that doesn't necessarily have clinical value, which is great. So what we think will happen over time is, if we're seeing a trend along that symptom, that there must be something there. It's not our job to say what is there, but we're really just giving the patient the tools to have a better conversation. The app does allow for the patient to create what we're calling a support team. So it's really made up of their friends, family, and their doctors. What we found is that people have about 5 folks that they're really interested in, usually a spouse, sibling, best friend, their doctor, and normally some just really, really close friend. It's really been great to see that. So that's that. So they can connect this information to their doctor. The other thing I'd say about that is that there's something to be said about the voice of the patient. And I sort of said that in my first point, but there's a collective voice that we can sort of spread to healthcare in the sense that the patient experience is much different than the clinical experience. So there's this collection of data that comes from patients that look alike that we can then share with healthcare to say, you may not be paying attention to this, but this is something that's actually happening on the street. Even if, from patient to patient, you may not be seeing what's happening. We sort of give you this broader population view. Does that answer your questions? Okay.
Hey Wes, thanks for presenting. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think patient-centered healthcare and having support teams around it is going to shift how we start to actually be preventative instead of reactive. So that's really exciting. One of the things that's coming to mind for me is I'm very plugged into a homeless community, and as you may or may not know, there's a lot of mental health issues there, and sometimes decision making is highly impacted for these folks, and we have a lot of challenges when we work with folks on the street to get the care that they need. In fact, the model is very much related to getting emergency medical service to the emergency department, right? So I could see a lot of actual added benefit there. But for these support teams, would the people on these teams be able to make any sort of decisions or help to encourage direct care? Or I don't know, I guess if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, in the context that we've seen it in, I mean, I can't speak to that particular context, but the context that we've seen it in is that moms are having, again, to make a lot of decisions for the family, and they end up being the ones that are checking in the patient portals. You know, there's only 35% of patients in the country are utilizing their portals on any given regularity, and the lion's share of that percentage is all women. And they tend to be moms. And what's interesting is that the users that we're targeting have been, and this is something that just came out of our testing, we didn't go looking for it, but most of the women that we talked to have been caregivers within the last 5 years, either in a primary or secondary position. So you could imagine sort of directly taking care of a patient, or a parent or a sibling, or having to sort of coordinate things from a distance. That's sort of what puts them in that secondary position. And what we've done to help them out in that regard is, if you'll see the top point there, the multi-chart view, we allow for people to manage multiple charts at a time. And you can imagine just sort of going across the page, if you will. So that's as far as we've gone. I think we'll end up doing more. But we're not necessarily trying to get into clinical decision support. I think that's just a different step. We really want to be more related to the general public than in these really kind of hard pockets, if you will.
Yeah, Wes, with regard to your distribution model, the individuals obviously are the ultimate consumer for the app. But how is that? Do you plan on integrating that with the health insurance companies? Many of them have wellness programs in place. But certainly something like this that go to chronic care, okay, obviously it's in their best interest if they can reduce, hospital costs. Have you looked at that type of distribution? We have, and just being honest here, the feedback we sort of continuously got from people, we weren't soliciting this feedback, it was, it's really hard to pay for therapy and trainers and nutritionists and things like that because my insurance company won't cover it. My insurance company won't do this, my insurance company won't do that. And we ended up sort of backing away from the idea of working with insurance companies yet. We really haven't found a responsible way for us to do it, just because it's a problematic area for our end user. And we haven't really figured out a responsible way to have that conversation. So that's sort of where we stand at the moment. And our business model is really born out of the need that the user presented to us, which is how do we use our data that we're sort of giving to Kurbi to do things that we really care about on a day-to-day basis in the real world. And the easiest way for us to accommodate that need would be to connect them to the experts that they're looking for. But our job has been to get those experts and those people at the local level to discount their pricing for the opportunity of connecting to a larger user base. And the good thing for them is that a lot of these people got started because they really wanted to treat a specific type of patient, but it's expensive and the sales cycle for that is really long. So they end up becoming more general practitioners, and it's not something that they wanted to do. They just really thought over time they would be able to get specialized and niche-based. For a lot of folks, that doesn't happen. So they're really unhappy in their careers, even if they're successful. And Kurbi gives them this outlet to sort of tap into that more altruistic side and really help the people that they sought out to help from the very beginning. So it's a win-win.
What's your API with the EHRs
sorry for all the acronyms. Is it bi-directional, or is it going to be? Like, can you interact with MyChart via this portal, or?
So it is not, if I'm understanding bi-directional correctly, it's not bi-directional. We're just extracting data. We're not putting anything back. And in fact, we actually don't even hold the data. We just present it to the user. So that makes it really interesting. It's a technical problem, because if we just held the data, it would be a lot easier to like do all the things that we do to it. But essentially, we have to do that on the fly. You can imagine us a lot like Mint.com. In the sense that they're not holding your financial data, but they just sort of extract and present to you at the time of login. And we're pretty much in the same boat. And in fact, the way that that data is triggered is not only by your login, but when you go to that actual page on the website. Again, just because we try to keep ourselves as distant and safe as possible. Yes.
Can you speak to the cost associated with the app and the service, and how you see making a profit?
Absolutely. Let me skip ahead here. So we're working with these experts to create content that these users are going to consume. So you can imagine, I might be able to show you. No, it'd be easier if I just talk about it. So, it's what we call a path, and it goes back to the very first screen. A path is essentially, again, this playbook that experts are putting together to help patients do what they really care about. And within that, there are, again, as I showed you before, there's videos and all this other stuff that goes along with it. The access to that is either at a free level, or it goes up to about $50. That's like the range we've seen. And at $50, you're essentially getting this like concierge sort of like one-on-one experience. As it gets cheaper, you get less and less connected to the creator of that content. But it's really great for again, I thought I'd silence that. Our particular user, because their largest issue is the time crunch of having to manage health, family, and self at the same time. So it becomes really attractive to them to find these really niched opportunities to get involved in ways that they can create and not create, but they can control for themselves. So that's how we work. So of that money, we essentially split 70-30 with the creator of the content. It's a lot like Groupon in that way, where we're going to make what you have available to a large community. And as people interact with that and purchase it, we take a piece of that transaction. Yeah.
One last question, and then we'll have time to come introduce yourself to Wesley if you have more questions.
Yeah, so mine is a little more nuts and boltsy again, but because you're working with health data, obviously you're doing extracting, but what kind of like regulatory kind of requirements do you have to meet? Things like HIPAA, like are you guys held to that standard because you're...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are... not so much at the data extraction side, but more at the fact that people can track their health over time. So there still is patient health information that we're holding. We really care more about the longitudinal data of people tracking their health than we do the actual extraction. The reason why we are interested in the health record data is that it gives us a really accurate picture of who the patient is, and it creates a floor, if you will. Because where we're effective is in recommending the right activities to you at the right time. So if we notice in your record that you just had like a leg amputated, it would be really insensitive for us to say, wouldn't it be great to go rock climbing? And the issue there is that most applications don't care about that. So if you went to Yelp and you were looking for a restaurant, they're not going to ask you, are you in a wheelchair? They're just not, because that's not what their model is there for. Their model is really to introduce you to places in your city. So we're trying to go that step beyond. And again, it's how we make it safe and inclusive for people.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for telling us about Kurbi, and everyone for your questions and for coming today. There are a few minutes to come up and introduce yourself and meet Wes, ask more questions if you do have them. And as always, please help yourself to more coffee. Thanks again to our sponsors, and see you next week.
Thank you.